Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Metaworld News, your highlights for the week ending August 27th of the grand old year 2017. And doesn't time fly? Unbelievable. We'll be in September this time next week. But enough of that for now. The various people are holidaying this weekend, and I think they will be next weekend in the other part of the world too. So we'll wait for the holidays to pass, then we'll pretend to be miserable in autumn. Right, okay. My name is Mal Burns. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/malburns, or one word, MALBURNS. And the first news items I'm going to be selected for you this week can be found on that feed. So if you don't quite catch the links or where to go, don't hesitate to look at that feed where you will find them. So, first on my list is supposed this time last week, in fact, from VRScout.com. I'm not sure whether we mentioned it last week, but it's a simple editorial post about how VR is changing the way we think about therapy. And as you might gather from the title, it's a sort of general look at things. Well, it covers several people, so I won't go into the details on that. Okay, moving forward a bit into the week. Exactly how a post 11 days ago can possibly be considered in the week, I don't know. Go figure, reader. Right. Voicesofvr.com, 7 days ago. We may have announced this last week. Number 569 is a podcast entitled Phenomenology of Perception and Embodied Metaphors. And you'll find that at voicesofvr.com. And if I actually didn't mention it last week, it's certainly worth mentioning it again, because that's a spectacular title, isn't it? Right. Uploadvr.com again. Definitely this week now. The new virtual reality world, pardon me, called Decentraland, has raised $25.5 million in cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency being pretty much the same as ordinary currency, it's just another kind of currency. Decentraland is actually an open source initiative, which brings us into our field of reference, and it's described as not dissimilar to Second Life. I'm not actually sure they've even heard of OpenSim, or probably could be comparing it to us. However, it distinguishes itself with blockchain technology. And things like land and stuff like that is all going to be controlled by blockchain and the cryptocurrency. They have mana tokens for the virtual world economy, and land rental, for example, is 1,000 mana tokens. It doesn't tell me what the exchange rate is, but anyway, this is all in play. There was a video that went with this, which is quite nice. It does actually look pretty good, this world, to be honest. It looks very somewhere between a cross between Second Life and High Fidelity, oddly enough, but I'm only going by what I can see on that little clip. Anyway, they have I think it's Ethereum, the blockchain thing. They've had a crowdfunding initiative, and they've raised $25.5 million. So they seem to be doing quite well for themselves at this point. Also, 6 days ago, I have a link here to IMA Vision, which is a video from IMA on YouTube. And it's basically just still photographs and a lot of use cases and a presentation about the whole range of stuff IMA, which is of course, Infinite Metaverse Alliance, are sort of endeavoring to tackle, and I will have more on them in a second or two for sure. Number 570 of voicesofvr.com's podcast is VR as a reality Turing test, supernormal cities and mind matter consciousness research. That's almost as good as the last one, isn't it? If people look for long, meaningful titles to go to voicesofvr.com, they must be doing quite well for themselves, although I suspect there are other people who would look at the title and think, what the heck is that about? Right. Hypergridbusiness.com. This is actually a post written by Kevin Feenan of Rockcliffe University and Virtual World's Best Practices, but published at Hypergrid Business. Educators make lemonade with virtual worlds. Now, I don't quite get the reference to lemonade. Maybe it's just me, or maybe it's something that's American and not British.
Well, it's the phrase, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so that's what they're doing. In many respects, it's a reply to a previous post on Hypergrid Business saying that educators were abandoning virtual worlds, or that previous post had been referring mostly to Second Life, and given the cost of Second Life, that might be the reason. But it's certainly not the case in on the Hypergrid and OpenSim. So Kevin obviously sort of fit to write an article in reply, and that's it. Right, TWN. I'm not sure what that stands for, believe it or not. It's not the news network. Let me see if I can find out what I'm talking. I don't know. It's a site called TWN. Anyway, they have a post called Virtual Reality Stage Shows are coming to a theatre near you. I often say that this a good place to look is the stage if you want to study storytelling ideas for virtuality, but this is actually a totally different thing. This is the idea here is that they're going to the Welsh National Opera is doing something with the Magic Butterfly, but there are some other things mentioned. It's to integrate virtual reality into stage performance, whether this simply means you'll have a helmet to view the stage backdrops and things, and you'll see reactors in mixed reality on top. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, the theatre is obviously jumping on VR. Virtual reality platform created for lab animals. This is wonderful, actually. You'll find it at Spectrum. That's spectrum.ieee.org. And it's a new VR platform that could help shed light on human genes and brain circuits. Lab scientists have devised a virtual platform for lab animals, and they say let that sink in. Zebrafish has swum with the aliens from the video game Space Invaders, and mice are afraid of virtual heights, and fruit flies have been circling illusory obstacles. And the whole idea here is they're creating, obviously you can't put a headset on a fruit fly. I'd love to see it, but you can build a holodeck kind of thing and throw these insects and things into simulators and watch their behavior. And the way fruit flies swarm around something, for example, is completely changed depending on what you project into the holodeck. And zebrafish are most befuddled by animations in the holodeck that look like Space Invaders games, and mice apparently really don't like heights. Go figure. Well, I guess they overcome their phobia when they jump up on the kitchen table for the cheese crumbs. But no, apparently they don't like heights. So they've been studying the agoraphobia, or whatever. It's not agoraphobia. What's the one for heights? I've got it. Anyway, mice have got it, and that's been studied. And they use a holodeck principle virtuality to actually study all this. And the results are obviously to benefit humans in finding ways to see how freely moving animals respond to a variety of illusions. Anyway, that's that. The BBC Co. UK, that's bbc.co.uk, have an article, it's subtitled in the journalism section. Is virtual technology a threat to journalism's objectivity? Quite a well-read article, so, you know, well-researched and written. I think in some ways they're referring to virtual technology as really online presence, because, you know, a lot of the points that are raised about using virtual interfaces are just as applicable to, you know, using and sourcing material from the web itself in these days of fake news, etc. Right, vrscout.com again. Malia Probst is her weekly podcast report. It's got an article accompanying it. Let's see what was in it. Vive has dropped their price for their headset to $200, competing with the other price crashes. Clash of the Clans, whatever that be, is in AR, and they talk about VR mind control. So that's on her podcast at VRScout, all one word.com. Another post from Hypergrid Business. This again is a guest post by Ilan Totner, who is, of course, from Kitely. And he's written a post which is responding to a previous Hypergrid Business article about high fidelity using the blockchain for both currency and inventory protection. And Ilan is saying basically high fidelity's content protection. Black Pan has high costs. And as somebody who knows about content protection, running Kitely and the marketplace, etc., he does raise a few interesting points about the so far unrealized way high fidelity we're using blockchain technology. Right, uploadvr.com. I think that's another one from them this week. Jules Urbach is on the brink. Right, there's a chap called Jules Urbach. Now, I know nothing about him, but this is just a rather interesting interview. He's a 43-year-old with curly black hair and a touch of grey on his beard. And then, of course, it goes on telling about him and interviewing him. But apparently he's a bit of a maverick, and he is on a quest to realize Star Trek's holodeck. I don't know whether he's a Trekkie or not, but they are referring to the way the holodeck is implemented in the science fiction TV series and film series, of course, of Star Trek, the famous holodeck. And he's on this personal mission to bring us holodecks, independent, really, of current VR trends, as in helmets. Right. Now, I mentioned the IMA earlier. Their website is infinite-metaverse, or one word.com. So it's infinite-metaverse.com. And if you didn't get that, check my Twitter feed. They had at that link a viewer development announcement. This is rather a surprise, as one of their sort of consultants, that I had no inkling this was coming. Many of you may know an OpenSim or virtual world viewer called Kokua, Kokua. The developer of that is feeling a bit worn down, and he's actually retired these days and has been looking for somebody to take it over or work with him. And the IMA have apparently agreed to take on. It's one of these viewers that has two strands. One is for Second Life users. One is for Open Metaverse users. And IMA have stipulated that firstly they will only develop the Open Metaverse viewer, and with an aim to making it unique to the Open Metaverse and getting rid of the old Linden Lab stuff. So if somebody takes over the Second Life strand of the viewer, that is a whole different ballgame. And they've made a few other stipulations, and they have had a meeting earlier this week talking in rough with just a few people about what form that that should take in terms of interface design, facilities that will be on the menus that maybe aren't obvious at the moment, stuff that can be got rid of, etc., etc. So a possible project that takes us a bit closer to having a dedicated viewer specifically designed for the Hypergrid and Open Simulator and its variants, unencumbered by walled garden legacy stuff. That's a polite way to put it, isn't it? Right. Road2VR.com, posted by Ken Byers ever. PTSD, exposure therapy and virtuality, the importance of storytelling and emotional presence in healing trauma. We seem to get an incredible amount of posts these days about the medical applications of VR, particularly when it comes to what we might call therapeutic things. It's being used in therapy, it's been used in meditation, and it's been used in training too. So, it's getting its mileage there. So that is it for my highlights of the Twitter feed I mentioned. We have another feed at Twitter called, well, it's twitter.com/Metaworld News, just as in the title of this show, but all one word. And I'm just flipping in there to see if there's anything that's snuck in there that isn't otherwise on the feed. Oh yes, for people that make film and stuff like that, there is a post from High Fidelity. It's actually on their video channel, so it points to YouTube, and it's a video about using the spectator camera in High Fidelity VR. I haven't really been able to test this. I think I've only been in there once since it was announced. Basically, this camera is something you can buy for free from the marketplace and put in your inventory. For people in high fidelity and headsets and stuff, instead of using the on-screen menus, they actually have their own sort of in-world iPad that they hold in their hands, and they load up the things they want by touching icons on their kind of iPad or tablet. It's not an Apple branded one. The camera actually allows them to do a bit like behind the scenes we do with this show, to actually load a camera that can send out streams and stuff to YouTube, but it's clean of the main interface. So basically, the avatar in 3D space is holding a camera, and the camera is pointing to what ever the avatar points it at. But the picture that's in the camera, in the viewport of the camera, is what gets streamed out. So it's been a bit like real life television, where in the studio we would actually have people holding cameras, filming us, and somebody on the vision mixer, switching between views. In here, for example, we use robots and a special HUD to literally click between views and stuff like that. There are no avatars with cameras actually hanging out. It's all in limbo, so to speak. But obviously, if you're moving around in a 3D environment, fancy being a cameraman, then what they're giving you is a camera you can hold, and it will behave just like a real camera, and it can be set to stream to Twitch and I think YouTube. So interesting. But of course, the very nature of that is something that on a 2D screen is kind of a bit, well, why? Why don't I just broadcast the screen, But anyway, a nice little toy that they brought out there. Also, High Fidelity have revealed currency and IP protection roadmaps, again, for both using the blockchain technology. And the post I'm looking at is a summary of all this from Metaworld ME. This is Nara Plays blog. And it says MODEMWORLD.ME. And she also has a post on her blog too about Old Space VR, The Return. Sounds like a movie, doesn't it? Alt Space VR, of course, was discontinued a few weeks ago and subsequently hasn't gone anywhere. It's still being pursued. Wonderful stuff. Right, and finally, I'll just give a quick look at the Google Plus stream, but I think that is all. Yes, that's all absolute repeats of what we've had already. So the big news this week, I guess, I included it there, is the fact that there are the chances going forward that assuming there's enough people in the working groups and people volunteering to help, we may be on the first stages of the way to a genuine open source, open metaverse viewer. So with that as a thoughts boss, over to you, James. James Outloud is here, of course. Welcome return this week, with a bit of news on the developers front. So over to you.
Yeah, I agree. That's really great news about the viewer. I think that's something that, just as for a test environment, to have one viewer that is certainly going to have all the commands, the OSSL commands and things like that. So that's very exciting news. I would have to agree with that. My notes today are from the Open Simulator Devs meeting, and this is actually office hours, open to the public for people to meet with the devs and chat. And it was another well-attended meeting. was a discussion at the beginning about vehicles that I arrived to a little bit late, but we jumped real quickly to the release of OS version 0.9. And so, having that milestone put in place, I think is really important. And there's quite a bit of discussion about, now that it's locked in as a version, what grids are likely to pursue an upgrade. And so there were interesting comments from a couple of grid owners or grid managers that were in attendance there. And something like that is going to take some time. The grid admins are going to have to analyze what things are going to work for their grid, but at least they can do that now. They can say, this is what it's going to be, so this is what we're going to do. Chicken and egg type of thing, right? And then the rest of the meeting really was going back to a common thread, and that really is about mesh and physics. And I should say mesh physics and viewers, because physics is really about not so much what the server does, but what the viewer does with the objects that it gets from the server. And so an interesting article was mentioned by Freaky Tech, who was pointing out some of the difficulties with mesh. And at the meeting, it was important to understand that the problems with mesh are happening with one physics engine, but not the other. And so that, again, is a grid admin or a grid owner has to make a choice about a physics engine, and then that's going to have an impact on how the way that mesh works. So that was the bulk of this meeting then at the end, was talking about that. And then it was interesting, at that meeting last Tuesday was the discussion about updating Kokua would be easy to do from the Kokua developer, and then the news very quickly that Kokua was going to be adopted or working with the IMA as a OpenSim viewer. So pretty exciting week. A lot of things happening. A lot of big milestone changes. Yeah.
Indeed. And contrary to, I haven't changed it yet, but contrary to some worries I had earlier on, I do know, for example, that my own grid, which is, on the hypergrid, but it's basically a private grid, I would actually be able to move to the '09 series, provided, and it is a strong proviso, that I still run bullet physics.
Yeah.
It will be the change of the physics engine that would caused the problems in
absolutely, and at least you can still choose. So
exactly, there are different variants. I think there's 3 possible physics engines you can use, and of course there are several different versions before the '09 series. So nothing is absolute, and everything is hypergridable anyway. You just get a little message saying this simulator is running a different version. That's really all there is to it.
Yep.
So all looking forward to the future.
Yeah, very excited.
Yeah. So I guess that's this week. We are, for those of you wondering what news we feature, we do endeavour to monitor simulator, and all its derivatives. And I know there will be arguments about this, but I consider both Halcyon and ArebaSim, and I think it's called White Core. Any of those things sort of the same, come from a similar core starting point. We also look at new platforms that are social in nature, like High Fidelity, Science Space, and in some of my feeds I've been giving a bit of embed of Gunter's Universe, which I think is VR Chat or something like that, which are actually some very interesting talk shows. So they're talking as in half as good as ours. Put it that way. So if you've got anything from the world of social virtual worlds, and in particular anything that's part of the open metaverse, in other words, it's open source and interoperable, do let us know. We can always use links and be happy to publish your latest news, as long as it isn't an invitation to your dance party on your region, of which there are thousands. Yes, we may well cover it. So thanks to James, and that's it for this week. We'll see you same time, place next week with another roundup of the week's news. So goodbye for now.